afternoon. We are in the work session of our regular scheduled board meeting. Board members present: Melissa, Wayne, Jeff, Lee. Superintendent's with us. Darren's with us. And I assume we expect Kristen.
I haven't heard anything.
To be here, so.
If she can get out of her driveway.
Oh, yeah. That's the whole problem is Helper Middle School is preventing her from coming because she's sequestered to her home due to construction.
For pickup.
We're doing student pickup right now
Wow.
and asphalt's being laid at the same time and a game is occurring. So there is every street packed right now.
So if we let's just blame it to 2020 COVID, right? It's just the year's fault. Okay, well, on our agenda for our work session is the school improvement TSSA plans. So do you have any questions before? Superintendent, why don't you just take a moment to refresh us on what that is and what the requirements are associated with that, particularly in the development of the plans.
Thank you. The TSSA is a special money that's provided by the legislature with the intent that the expenditures are driven by the school under the framework developed by the school board. So in our August meeting, you all approved the framework, which uses the funds for mental health. A major portion of the funds is going to pay for our mental health professionals, and then the balance is divided out amongst the schools based on student enrollment. And our plan, the school board's framework, says that the schools have to use the funds for advancement of their SMART goals in their school improvement plan. Each school district could say something different, but that's what ours says. And so our individual schools have leadership teams composed of teachers from different grade levels, special ed, counselors, and they went through a full day of analyzing their data and determining SMART goals and making a plan for the first quarter of how they want to address those. So TSSA comes in and gives them an opportunity to spend the funds to help them to reach their goals. So I know the schools really appreciate the funds. They have the ability to do things with TSSA that are where trust lands is a little bit restrictive. TSSA makes it possible for them to do some things that normally they have a hard time figuring out how to do.
That's one question. I think every single plan has set aside money for rewards of some type. And even though the SMART goals from the trust lands plans don't allow for that, this then can come in and make up so that they can just augment those plans with some student reward stuff.
Right, and that's been a huge benefit. They had been trying to wiggle themselves around in a way with trust lands to be able to do it, but they make it so restrictive, it's hard. So.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, one other thing, just so that you know, all of the schools have, it's not required that the school community council vote on this TSSA plan, but all of the schools have involved their school community councils by making sure they know what the plan is and that they've seen it and they had a chance to weigh in and comment on it. So.
Okay, well, you put the summary up there, and why don't we just go down the same order as you put the schools in the summary?
That sounds great, except for one thing. We have Rob at Helper Middle. He's got his first games going on.
Oh, let's get him out of here. Okay.
So yeah, if he can go
All right.
first, that would be great. And
You
then
bet.
if we can go back to the top and work.
Seth would like to as well.
We got a game going on right now, and I got fans not wanting to wear masks.
Okay,
So if I can go second,
Sounds good.
She's gotta go second.
yeah, Amy's got to go second, and then we'll go third, okay? How about that? Okay, so we're gonna go down to helper.
Mine's way short.
So ours is pretty small, about $8,600. However, we tied that directly to our SMART goals with regards to reading and behavior. We really wanted to make sure that all of our students are reading at as high a grade level as possible, but that does require that we put some resources towards those that are low readers. So in conjunction with Trust Lands, we actually budgeted a full class for a teacher to teach reading specifically. That's coming out of Trust Lands, and then some of the software to be able to support that teacher in teaching those skill sets is going to come out of TSSA. So almost a little bit more than half of that right now is budgeted towards that, about $4,600. And then we wanted to put a little bit towards some professional development for the teachers. We would like to involve Wasatch Reading Summit, although after publishing this and talking with the teachers, they said realistically it's going to be a virtual summit. We don't think that that would be really useful for us at the time. So that may just get moved into reading improvement incentives to help those students who are improving upon reading levels, and just give them an incentive to actually move forward and actually try. And then the remainder of that was dedicated to our behavior goal as we continue to implement HERO. Obviously, we need something to be able to use so that HERO's currency of points is able to be spent. And a segment of that will be used to try and reach our goal with relation to decreasing defined disrespectful behaviors. And we're really looking good this year so far.
So how are you going to define a 5% reduction from last year?
You have a very valid point with regards to the fact
I
that
mean, this,
COVID
everybody ought
happened.
to listen to this and figure it out.
So we have 3 quarters to actually compare to. We have a beginning
Right.
and an end, and we have data to actually look at. So we can actually extrapolate and
So
actually,
you're gonna extrapolate?
We're gonna have to.
Okay, all right.
and then some of that is just kind of a list of the things that we would use: swag, gift cards, weekly drawings, things like that.
Okay, any questions? Okay,
I don't have a question, but it's interesting that the discussion started with the idea of incentives. Because I actually sat down and went through each plan from each school and made a list of what money was directly for student incentives. And this year, we're going to spend over $65,000 district-wide on just student incentives. And I don't have a problem with incentives. I really don't. But I wonder if we're getting out of that $65,000, are we getting our bang for the buck?
we get, district-wide, we're getting the value of another teacher.
And I want, what I'm saying and looking at this is, we give a lot of school incentives, and that's good. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with any of your plans. And I don't have a problem with voting for your plans today. But I just looked at this money and I thought, if you had $65,000, is there something that all of you could do together that would be beneficial or more beneficial? Or, I don't know, I put the list together. I'm not really a bad person, but I did make a copy for all the board members just to show you. I took out just what I saw as student incentives in each school. And I don't think this is the year to do it. I think we've got enough on our plate, and I like your plans just the way they are, and I don't have a problem with them. But I wonder if for next year, you might like to look at that and see is there something that would help everybody that putting it together would do? And I also have a question, because I'm old now, about what student incentives, sometimes they work and sometimes they don't.
You're absolutely right, and I can respond to at least a couple of those things. For starters, what you're seeing in print is because you're seeing it for the first time actually in
Right.
print. This doesn't mean we haven't had incentives at the school level before.
Right.
We have for many, many years.
Right,
You just haven't seen that as a line item budget and
Right.
been able to determine that. So I want to qualify that that is something that's been in practice for quite some time, and it has been useful.
has it
Likewise.
worked?
I think it has. Now, I can only give you anecdotal data at this point, but I do know that specifically there are a number of students, both personally that I have dealt with, where the incentive made the difference in something that the student was working towards.
Right.
Whether that was a skateboard, whether that was a Lego set or something of that nature at our level, that really did help that student hit the behavior goals we set for that student. And that money had to come from somewhere. Right now, we've got a targeted pool that says we can use this, and ours is maybe roughly 30% of that total budget, which is a chunk of money, but it would have already been in our regular budget anyway. With the investment of Hero, we actually have something to tie that to, and we're trying to get students to use their behavior to earn a currency. What do we use that currency points for? Moving to the front of the line in lunch line is really not an issue anymore. They're so short, at least at our school, that it doesn't cost us anything to do that, but it's not an incentive anymore. And so there are some things that we have to use that money for, and this is the pool to be able to do some of that. But in the
Something to
past, it's
think
always
about.
been there.
Yeah.
And as far as pooling it together, I can still tell you, as far as our school, we're still gonna need some sort of incentive money. We're still going to have programs that will require, and we want to reward our students for it. And we want to reward not just the behavior students that we're targeting, but the school expectations that kids are living up to as well.
Well, and you're kind of in a different spot than some of the schools because the amount of money you get is pretty small. But in a school with a lot of students, it's a lot of money.
It is, but if you compare that to where that money may have been coming from in the past, using trust funds as an example, you were limited to about $2, $3 a student. Now that's $3,000 roughly for 1,000 students at the high school, which is enough for a water bottle per student.
I guess the question really is, does a t-shirt really work?
Yeah, so
Does the water bottle work?
That's the water, and so this is for me, the core of the incentive situation is, first, to lay the background, I really bristle when we get unfunded mandates from the legislature, from the state school board, particularly where we have to generate another report to prove accountability for some program that they've created now, and so that it's just, we don't have the resources. How do we do that? And so in asking you to be accountable for something that you haven't been accountable for before is kind of that same thing. So I have a problem fundamentally with it, but I also have a problem fundamentally with having this type of money with no accountability. Let's just have an ice cream social, and will that ice cream social, what are the benefits of it? There may be significant benefits because of the climate in the school at the time, and you significantly change the climate in the school by doing that. But be aware of that, and somehow within the structure of planning these incentives, build in, what are we trying to accomplish with it? How are we going to know that we've accomplished it?
I would agree 100% with you, and we have been asked to put together a positive behavior system of support.
Yeah.
And in doing so, it is largely an unfunded mandate, so we do have to find ways of funding that. Incentives are part of that kind of PBIS system where you are recognizing positive behavior versus recognizing the negatives. And it's not just the ice cream socials. We do have positive behavior supports related to academic achievement. So
Well, and,
we
right,
have
and
a lot
even
of those.
that, giving them a T-shirt when they behave in a certain way, is that an effective way to do that? How do you know? That's what it comes down to.
I would ask that, I get the T-shirt argument.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, we do
You know,
employ
whatever
those.
it is.
But we do have some specifics, and I'm happy to bring those. I
Well-
mean, at the moment, our menu is simply as general as we could make
Yeah,
it, because
And,
we've got a lot to go through.
and at some point, district administration, the school board have to demonstrate our trust in what you're doing, but that's our concern. That's what we'd like you all the process we'd like you all to go through in doing that is what's the bang for the buck that we're doing here. And
And
That's
ultimately,
it.
we've tried to communicate that those SMART goals are the reason for the plan.
But is it
That
effective?
You
That's the
need to
other
hit
side.
those SMART goals, so we better use the money in a way that helps us to.
That's if you don't hit the SMART goals, boom.
Agreed, and honestly, this is that accountability process,
Yeah.
and I certainly welcome the questions. I would also welcome you to come visit, and let's show you what we're doing and how we're making that work.
Good.
Anything else? You bet, thank you.
Castle Valley Center. And thank you, Rob, as you come up.
Good luck, Rob.
Yeah,
Do it.
good luck. Will you make sure to go over your SMART goals so that everybody's clear on what you're trying to accomplish? Thank you.
Afternoon. So our SMART goals, our first one is the last 2 years, we worked on in creating our own assessments because we're so individualized in our center. And so we created math, reading, and functional checklists. And the last year and a half, 2 years, we really tried to do school-wide data, and it just hasn't really worked, and it's not driving any instruction for us because our kids are just so individualized. So we decided this year that we're going to try to take those checklists and make them more connected to actual IEP goals. So all of the students in our school are on an IEP. And so what we're going to do is take the process of our IEP, and every teacher, when it's a student's time to review that IEP, will have those checklists completed, and then use those checklists, identifying the areas that they're low in to develop IEP goals. It's also going to help us help parents see more progress, because a lot of times standardized testing will never show us progress for our students. But if they can see a functional checklist and the checklist that we're working off of, and then we're creating goals as a team, then they're going to see the progress that we're making. And so we're hoping that that is going to be a more applicable way to use that data. So it's going to still be very individualized, but we're going to target that. And then we're going to use a little bit of our money to kind of target some of the, particularly math goals on our math checklist, because it also ties to our behavior goals. So we really want to develop some monthly or quarterly community-based access activities. Our students need to be able to step beyond just our class and our school and step outside of that. That's what parents ask a lot. That's where they're concerned, is they need to be able to take their children out to community events, school, and then attach it to an actual community activity. So one area we're really focusing on is we want to be able to do a school store, where we're still tossing this around. But we want to use the monies for this. We want to build a store that the kids can either help run, walk through, they're going to learn how to exchange money, they're going to learn waiting in line. So they're going to learn all the prerequisite skills. We're going to practice it at our school, and then we're hoping to be able to go out as soon as we can and then start hitting some stores and actually practice the skill out in the community. So our money is going to be going towards those things, trying to do some of those, building the store. We're also trying to find other people to come and do some community activities that we can do more school-wide, that we can then maybe branch out after that. Some of the ideas we have a student in our district that wants to come and teach our kids how to dance and do line dancing. They've done that before. So if we can do that, then we can then maybe invite and expand that to a bigger group of people to come in when we can do that. And then the last one is really trying to get our support staff to understand what our purpose is there and how they can help us meet those functional skills and those math and reading skills. And so we've been defining some of those 8 expectations and training them, and then try to review those expectations on a regular basis. So you can see our budget is, the academic one is the math area. We want to use some to maybe help purchase some of the materials for the cash registers, the money, those kind of things that we can build into our store activity. And then we're going to try to display some of our, so the t-shirts are for the staff to wear, so everybody's seen. We created a vision statement for our school this past month. Staff is seeing it. We want people to see it all the time, putting up some signs in our school so everybody knows what our business is in our school. So that's where ours is. Then the materials for the school store. And then we think the step before a store is a concession stand kind of an idea. So we're going to be purchasing some things to help us practice doing some of those kind of things.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, as a parent of a student who attended Casa Valley Center, this is awesome, because most of these kids, a lot of the kids will go out into the community and want to be involved in working in some of these places, and the concession stands, the food places are the ones that hire them the most. And, you know, to run a cash register is a step above what some of them are even able to do. So I really appreciate the effort on this one, because I'm a mom.
Besides which, I think it sounds so much fun.
Yeah, it does sound fun.
People like
I
it.
agree with that too. We should
Yeah.
still be having fun in education. We can still learn and have fun. But I agree with you. And I think Casa Valley has always had that mission. I think
Right.
as a staff, we're just trying to really make it understood, clear, defined, and now tie our activities to that very specific vision statement that we've created.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Then we'll go to Lot Harmon.
The team doesn't want to wear the masks. Okay, a couple things. Our academic goal is very similar to last year, other than you can see that with our increase, we're focusing on grade level. I know last year we had some grade levels make huge gains and some make not as much. And so we want to really tie it down so each grade level was showing at least a 10% growth. Because we had, like last year, our 6th grade had 15 and our 8th grade had like 4 or 5. I want to get more specific on that. And so our academic, we made that increase of 10% per grade level, so we can really focus on each grade level instead of school-wide data for our academic. Behavior is a completely new goal this year. We've been looking at tier 2 and tier 3 behaviors, and we found that we were getting those down into such a low percentage number that it really wasn't giving us the data we want to look at. So we're going to look at data a little different this year for us. Using the HERO program, we're taking a baseline data the first quarter and looking at smaller infractions. Instead of those tier 2 and tier 3, we want to know what was going on in the classrooms and the hallways that were leading to that tier and 2, 3, and start addressing that behavior. It's just because we had the top tier behavior handled so well. So what we're going to do with that is then look at that first quarters and then try to get the reduction in really targeting whether it's respect, whether it's being prepared. What is it we really need to target? And so we really changed our behavior goal that way. So our 2 goals are those 2 goals. I can talk a lot about incentives. When we went to Mount Harmon and we went into turnaround, the community was fabulous. We were getting $30,000 plus a year from our community to fund incentives. And students, I wish we could say students learn because they want to learn. They don't. And with that amount of money, that was one of the key factors in changing our culture and changing our students wanting to learn, was giving an incentive program. Now, it's not always a toy. A lot of these kids will do anything to get a book to take home and read. So when you're looking at incentives, you're looking at reading books, you're looking at classroom supplies, you're looking at things that a lot of our population does not have, but would really like to have. So when you look at the amount of money when we go into behavioral on this, it's big. You know, it's $12,000, $14,000. But from the $30,000 we were using when we first went into turnaround, to cutting that back into our behavior program and to going into our Pirate Pride cards, it's less than what we're having to pull from the community. And that's what I love about this, is it's funded and I don't have to go hit these community sponsors who are so willing, so fabulous to give to us, but we ask so much that it was starting to bleed them. And that's what makes this so neat. So going to the academic with that, we really found that our students need a library over the summer. This year it kind of got cut, we couldn't bring them back in. So we had our librarian go in and just totally rebuild the library. It's been repainted, you can go look at it. She went clean, reorganized everything. So we want the library open 3 hours a day all summer for the kids to come in, and we're gonna do that. Our ALA and math teachers focusing on our reading goals, setting those behavior groups, setting those targeted instruction groups. They needed extra time after school. We were just using too much of their prep time, so we put some money there. With our 10,000 here and our 10,000 from Trust Lands, we're putting an average now of $20,000 a year in level reading books in classrooms. And with that, we now have the program out like our libraries, where they're checking them out in class and we're tracking them. So by the end of this year, I'm excited to see which books have been checked out, how many, and really look at the data points on that we have in the past. And then the rest of it is focused on these behavior and these incentives. But the goals with that is, if I can get a student that's struggling and set, what would you do? And it's amazing what a kid will do for Rubik's Cube or for another reading book. And the growth we've been able to see with that and what we've been able to get with that has been phenomenal.
You know, I think you've really focused on something. I think we don't realize as adults how when school is closed, a lot of kids cannot get to a library because they're bus students. And so I think you've hit on something, that if they're wanting to read so much and they're wanting books, that's a great incentive.
Oh, it's great to buy a kid a series of books.
I think summers, where we're getting bogged down, because they really do pretty well, but then it's summer, and then there's like those months, and they just can't get there.
Yep.
They can't use the school, you know, they can't get to the school library, they can't get to the public library.
And this money also goes into buying the ebooks where they can be at home and get online and
Yeah.
check out books that way. So
Love
have their
that.
reading and
I
get those
think
things.
that's really good. You know, Superintendent, if that, could they have their, I know, don't they usually, they only have a classroom set of Chromebooks, but is there a way we could figure out that a kid could actually have that Chromebook in the summer to read?
Well, a lot of these kids can get on their phones.
A lot of
and
them
read.
have things, but some kids don't
Yeah.
have those devices.
What about a Kindle, an e-reader type of?
I can answer the question of, we have sent for the summer for some kids,
We have done
you know,
that.
depending on their accommodations, you know, IEP, or just, you know, they don't have anything and they need something. So we have done it, but on a limited basis. We haven't
Good.
announced it to anyone, but we can definitely. do
That might be, you know, something that I would have died if I couldn't read it in summer. All the summer, but that would have been terrible.
I didn't even.
I-
I don't know if I could die.
Really?
Not a pass it, throw it, kick it, shoot it, what good was it, right?
But I think you're onto something good.
Any other questions before we
I
come back?
read
to
the
things
street
you
signs.
need? Can you do?
Giant horse maybe.
Okay, thank you.
You read the 4-H.
Thank you, Seth.
I was on a horse.
So we'll go back up and then we'll be back on track here. We'll go to Carbon High School.
I can be last if anyone else wants to go ahead. We can go whenever. So we, as the leadership team met and went through the protocols over the summer, they looked at data from last year. And one of the big things we recognized last year with the way the year ended is our school improvement goals were all focused on fourth quarter and making changes throughout the year, but seeing the results of those in fourth quarter. So we ended up hurting last year with our fourth quarter goals and not really knowing if we were able to achieve those things because we lost fourth quarter. So as they met this year, they went through the data looking for academic and behavior goals. We wanted to focus on things that we could track throughout the year to continually look at progress and see if we're meeting those goals as opposed to a mass number at the end of the year as a reduction. So the academic goal was focusing on tier 1 instruction, the instruction that all students receive in the classroom. So this is tier 1 instruction for honors and AP and college concurrent enrollment classes, all the way down to our essentials classes. And the tier 1 instruction should be effective for 80% of the students. 80% of students should master concepts, essential standards with tier 1 instruction without having to go into intervention. And so as the leadership team talked about it and looked at the data,
Where did you pull that number from?
that's that's the data that
They
is
get
out
that
there.
from me.
Okay, all right, good.
Yeah, the pyramid of instruction,
That's coming from the
the gurus.
research
Yeah.
from Solution Tree and all of the experts like Mike Nados and the DeFores and Rich Schmoker. They all indicate that good classroom instruction, 80% of the kids should, if you have more than that, and you're trying to intervene on 40% of your kids, no intervention system's gonna handle that. That's too much. You have a tier 1 instruction problem if you're not getting up to 80%.
And actually, that's what our data showed, which is why this was identified. So as we looked at the amount of students that were participating in Tier 2, which is our flex interventions, we realized that number is higher than the 20%. And so we recognized that the initial focus needed to be on more effective Tier 1 instruction in the classroom. So that's the goal, is to improve the Tier 1 instruction to meet that goal of 80% of our students will master essential standards with just the Tier 1 classroom instruction without needing additional intervention on top of that. And so we're going to track that throughout the year. So as departments come up with common formative assessments on essential standards, so they can take their essentials, create their mental models, rubrics and checklists, and then they create assessments, we can actually track that data throughout each standard, or if they test on 2 or 3 standards at a time, we'll know if that Tier 1 is being effective when they give those assessments to all students. So that's the academic goal, is that focus. Then the behavior goal for us, data is a concern when it comes to looking at behavior at Carbon High School. And we recognize that a lot of our teachers deal with behaviors in the classroom that never get reported. And so trying to get accurate data so we know where to focus to help teachers has been a big concern. And sometimes putting it into SIS is great, and sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. And some students get sent to the office, and some of the teachers just deal with it. And so we wanted to use this as kind of a benchmark year to collect data. And so using the HERO system, which the district has given us, we can track more accurately what kinds of behaviors are going on in the classrooms. And so the leadership team has identified some specific behaviors, and we want to focus on the PBIS side of things as the students are receiving those incentives, as Seth and Rob talked about. We should be able, as we go month to month, so they'll look at and analyze data every month. So when the HERO data comes in, we'll look at what were some of the struggles in the classroom and how many incentives did students receive. And then as they receive more, did that cause a reduction in the negative behaviors as more positive behaviors were recognized? So this is our year to kind of track that, to see if there is actually any quantitative data to show that in December, we gave out 8,000 positive HERO points and had fewer negative behaviors reported in the classrooms or sent to the office. So we're hoping to collect that data throughout the year. And part of that money, if you scroll down, so for the academic goal, we recognize that there's a need for some professional development with regards to Tier 1 instruction to make sure the teachers have the training that they need to be more effective in that Tier 1.
So SLT,
Yeah, so SLT, department heads, as well as,
what is it? What is SLT?
oh, school leadership team.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, yeah.
All right.
So, yeah, sorry. So PD for the leadership team, departments, and school-wide. We also recognize that there may be some programs, whether they be online, virtual programs, or a program that we can purchase. Some might be specific to a grade level. So if there's a reading program that we can buy that will help Tier 1 reading instruction be more effective across the board, we'd like to use some of that funds to be able to purchase those programs that may assist us in that Tier 1. And then we also recognize with technology, especially with 80 plus students currently doing Carbon Online, that we need to have some technology or some money allotted for technology to help us collect the data, as well as some assessments need to be given. If we're giving common formative assessments across the grade level through Chromebooks, are there programs that would benefit us that we can purchase technology to help support that? Whether that be, things outside of what the district would normally purchase in a classroom to help collect that data and to be more effective. And then on the behavior goal, a lot of schools have, as we've looked at data statewide and nationwide, we've seen schools that actually use a flex time type of intervention for behavior interventions. And that's something we would really like to look into. So if we have a student who's consistently struggling in an area of behavior, whether it's, I'm just going to use one for no random reason for some kid who just talks all the time and can't keep his mouth shut in class. I'm not just randomly pulling that out of the air, not because that was me.
I don't know how come I was thinking that.
Yeah, it's shocking, right? Everyone's surprised by that. I wasn't the quiet kid in class. But if that's a challenge for a student and they're consistently struggling with that, we may not know as a school how to help, but there are programs out there that are designed to help with those things. We looked at some schools that use like a 7 Habits type of program that's designed to help students when they struggle with those behaviors and things like that. So character development. So we wanted to have some money allotted to use to get some of those programs in place. Our behavior team, to track the data monthly, will need to meet outside of their normal hours, and we wanted to make sure that they were compensated for that. We have a separate behavior team from our leadership team. And then we have incentives, so about 16,000 put into incentives. And some of the things that are on there, that's a very small list. We include things like prom tickets. So students who want to earn prom tickets that they can't afford, but they really want to go to prom, they can earn that through Hero Points. Even things like Lagoon tickets. We have students who've never been to Lagoon. They can't afford to go to Lagoon as a family. We'd like them to be able to work towards earning some of those things as well.
The question I had when I looked at this on your academic goal, determined by PLC teams. Have they done that?
Yes. So our teams have gone through and identified essential standards. Yep.
Perfect.
So there are more to come because they're always looking at data and deciding, is that still essential? We've actually, as the leadership team met over the summer in our retreat, they really would like to do across the grade level teams. So, make sure that the math team is talking about what do our freshmen need to know, what's essential for freshmen to be ready for sophomore math, what's essential for sophomores to be ready for juniors.
You're not already doing that?
They have been, but just not to the level that they need. So they're analyzing that, okay, we said last year our freshmen needed this. Does the data show that that was what they needed, or do we need to change it? And they just wanted more time built into their PLCs for that.
I worried about the one comment about using Hero now. Is that a computer program where you?
Yes, so Hero is an online program. There's an app. In fact, so I know Mont Harmon used it quite a bit last year. Lindsay Hansen came from Mont Harmon over to Carbon this year. So she is one who used it a ton and really loved it. And as the teachers are concerned about the time it might take to do something like that. And it was actually, we were talking to Lindsay when she got back from her quarantine, and she said, well, I've used the app before, but it's not really as effective. And so she pulled up the app again, and there's been an update. And what she found is now it's super quick and convenient. So for example, she could pull her phone out at the end of third period. It takes 2 seconds. You open the app, you click on third period, the students are loaded. You hit select all. The class was really great that day. They were really focused, except those 2 talkative boys in the back of the room who I had to tell to be quiet 5 or 6 times. So you check all, you uncheck the 2 talkative boys, you reward the rest of the class with points for being effective, following policy and procedure, and it's done just like that. And so and that's a program that the district has actually provided.
It's a district-wide
It's district-wide.
program that we've adopted.
But the data is all really, the reports are phenomenal to help us see where the behavior focuses are.
Well, and their SMART goal is a good example of needing the data. You can tell it's not a SMART goal, really, as far as they didn't have the data they needed to be able to make a really solid SMART goal. This is going to provide them that data so they can now analyze it by quarter, by semester, and really get down to the nitty gritty of what are the positive things going on, but also what are the negative things going on.
Well,
I
and
find it's pretty good.
yeah, we had data, but the data showed that we had all of 15 kids who were sent to the office for behavior last year. Well, we know that's not the case. There were more than 15 students who struggled with behavior issues, but the teachers going in and trying to input that stuff into SIS is somewhat time consuming, and a lot of them, again, it's easier for them just to handle it, be done with it, and move on instead of actually tracking the data accurately, and Hero provides a system for tracking.
All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. To Polly now? Is that where?
Let's see, I think we are Yeah, that's right.
Me?
Yeah.
Be nice, this is my first time.
Oh, no. That's why, did you see me go with it, Polly? No?
Okay, for our goals, we had our data pretty much, from March, when the students left, we had tested almost everyone. So at the end, when we ended in March, 29% of our students were reading and comprehending. By May, we want to have 60% of our kindergarten through fifth grades reading and comprehending on grade level. Our behavior, we added 2 goals after looking at data, and we analyzed all the data that we had. They were great last year. They had used the HERO system part of the year. And so this year we made some adjustments to where we found we didn't have enough data. There were some things that we didn't like, so we made some adjustments in the HERO system. We've trained all the teachers, all of the paras on the new app. We found for our upper grade kids, there is a barcode. And so they would get tickets, like paper tickets in the classroom. Well, with COVID, they didn't want to give the tickets and be passing those back and forth. So now when the teachers are giving points, like for getting their agenda signed and following procedures, the upper grade kids have binders, and in the top corner of their binder, there's a barcode, and the teacher can walk by, she can scan it and give kids points. If the kids have to spend their tickets, they have to just bring the barcode up, the teacher scans it, deducts the points or however. So it's worked really well for them just in their classrooms. That's just classroom. We set it up for 4th and 5th grade. But the paras, the nice thing about it is we're looking at focus areas every month when our team meets the 3rd Monday of the month. We'll look back and see, okay, where were the struggles? Where did we get the most things? And then identify that as a focus area that we need to really focus, review procedures, do something for the next month. And so that's our goal. And then our second goal is Cassie has done a great job implementing second steps, but we wanted to work with student government.
Cassie is the counselor.
Cassie Bailey, our school counselor. She goes in twice a month into classrooms and teaches these social emotional learning lessons. And it's been great, but we wanted to bring that together, that we want to see the kids using those skills that she's going in and teaching. So they had used tokens for something different last year, so we kind of separated it out. And Cassie will go in and she's outlined the year, and we have monthly themes. And so we're going to track the data, and we're looking at making posters that will say, this is what being a friend looks like, sounds like, or being a community. When you're part of a community, this is what it looks like, this is what it sounds like. And if they're seen actually doing those skills that they're learning through the counselor, through their teacher, they will get tokens that will be turned into the office, and we'll track that also in the HERO system. So those are a couple new goals for us, just for the fact that they wanted to make some changes. So our spending is books. We want to be able to possibly resources or more books. The teachers have started every month. We've started a scope and sequence on comprehension skills. So they've identified what they're going to, every grade has taken a certain skill that they're going to teach, because they felt like we need to really hit some of the comprehension skills just as much as the reading. And so they're finding the kids are getting the accuracy, but they're struggling with answering comprehension questions or really getting a lot out of the text. So we decided to scope and sequence out some comprehension skills by grade. First grade, they're going to teach this skill and how they're going to teach it. So they've been coming up with what they're teaching in our school-wide PLC. Supplies for classroom level carts and bins. We're finding that We need some more bins and some more carts so that we have enough books because of COVID and trying to quarantine things. And then intervention needs for lower students. We're finding with our phonics program and stuff, we don't have enough kits, and having to share kits isn't really feasible right now. So buying extra kits and licenses and things like that from our really great reading, which is our phonics program. And incentives for classes and students for meeting growth goals. So if the student sets a goal, we don't want to say, oh, you have to be on grade level. It could be a kid is down here, but their growth, they're making growth, so they're getting points. Like I had 4 kids come up today because they've leveled up to get gumballs out of the gumball machine in my office. So they're pretty excited. So it's to fill the gumball machine, just different incentives, pencils, things like that. And then for tangible rewards, pencils, trinkets, just things like that. We bought the Second Steps Principal Kit. They didn't have it, so it helps with the monthly themes. It gives morning announcements that can be read. And it has ideas for every month, an assembly or a virtual thing. And so it helps tie all of the second steps together. So our student government is going to do we're going to film them doing some of the activities and put them out into the classrooms monthly. Tokens, we're worried that as they come back in, we're sanitizing them, that they're going to disintegrate. So we might have to replace some of the tokens that we've purchased. Hero points, we've set it up where when they get so many points, they can cash them in. And one of them was to get to use the principal's chair or the teacher's chair. Well, we decided with COVID, we really don't want to do that. So we want to buy some flexible seating that they could come and get, like a yoga ball for the day, or so just some incentives like that that we can have. If they set a grade level goal, they can earn a pizza party, things like that. And then the posters for the hallway and the classrooms relate back to the theme of the month and what it should look like and sound like for our second steps.
Is Second Step brand new to Wellington, or is that something that?
I think Cassie had it last year. I think it was the care, Chelsea?
So Second Steps, Bruin Point purchased it a few years ago as their program for curriculum for social emotional learning. And then Cassie transferred down to Wellington Elementary, and she really loved the program, wanted to incorporate it there. And through the CARE Coalition, she worked it out that they purchased for the other 4 schools a set. So all 5 schools now have the same curriculum. And this is the first year that all 5 schools will actually be teaching the same curriculum, because Bruin kind of went off of it for a while, and now they're full board, all of them teaching it the same.
Good question. All right.
Thank you, Molly. Molly Mark.
All right. It's a good thing we got that mask on. We wouldn't be able to see you otherwise.
I was gonna walk up here and just set this down and take off. Go back up. So, our 2 SMART goals, academic. So we looked at our data from last year, and 75% of the students were proficient on grade level math facts. So that's your addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And we wanted to continue that. So this year we want to get the students to 80% for their math facts. Behavior, last year 85% of the students are, during this year, we want to do something different with our behavior, because our behavior was something that I just think the teachers really didn't know how to follow classroom management. If they had an issue in their classroom, it was always send a student up to the office, send a student up. So we started a new thing last year, and we wanted to implement it this year 100%. So 85% of the students visiting Refocus from the classroom will do so only if needed after a teacher has followed the behavior flow chart and classroom management skills. So this is going to build up that teacher, as well as the students will be aware and the students will be working towards things throughout the year. So our money, academic goals. Last year we did brag tags, necklaces. The kids love them. Something they hang on the wall. They get a take home at the end of the year. Anytime they level up in math, they get a brag tag. They pass a test. They get a little. It's almost like a little army tag. We did a movie pass last year for everybody who leveled up because we couldn't take anybody to the movies. Kids loved that. That was something amazing. One thing that I did for this year is I doubled the classroom math resources from last year to this year. Another thing I know we've talked about, will a kid really work for a t-shirt? Yes. The kids in Helper see a t-shirt. They don't have a lot. They want that cool shirt. They want to wear it for their friends, so they will work for a shirt. The next one, $300. Leadership team came up with this one. A monthly math facts, the whole class on sidewalk with chalk. We want to cover once a month. We want teachers to either be teaching a math fact lesson out on the sidewalk. And then they wanted me to ask this man right here if he'd bring his drone too and take it up and take a picture of all the cement and all the chalk that's going on out there. I will.
Gee, do I need, I
Yes.
got to go fly my drone.
I know.
Man,
I did that.
Yeah, man.
I have just a comment about this. You know, that 75% of students being proficient at grade level in Helper, I mean, that's a low-income school, and that is a pretty amazing thing. And now I get it. See, I get that that t-shirt is so cool because you have to earn that t-shirt. It isn't just given so that you'll be good or be cool or be fun, or it's because you learned something. I love that.
And one thing we've learned about that type of incentive is it's only half about the t-shirt. The other half, it's about someone gave me that t-shirt. I talked to an adult about what I accomplished. That adult praised me. And the t-shirt is really just a token almost of something that really means even more. And that's that someone acknowledged that I did something.
Something really good. I like that so much. I think that's so great.
And then for behavior goal, we are going to purchase, talking with Wellington, how they use the second step principals kit. So our counselor will be using that. Our student government will be using that as well for our the morning announcements, stuff like that. The next one for Bullhorn quarterly drawings, we want to do something big because teachers are giving away bullhorns this year for behavior in classroom. And so we want to make the prizes larger and give out less so that the kids can work towards that. And at the end of the year, we'll save up everyone that's turned in a bullhorn and do a big drawing. And then the next one, posters for classrooms and hallways. So that will be our flow chart, our classroom management, expectations, school rules. Next one, we're going to have our student government come through after the counselors taught a lesson. And so they'll come through and do character counts lessons in the classrooms as well. So they'll get lessons from the counselor as well as peer students. $1,000 for house system rewards. We give those out daily for tokens. And then the last thing is to keep our school store going, and we're going to add masks to that. Questions?
Thank you.
Can I acknowledge just really quick, Blake was hunting today and pulled himself away to make sure he was here for this presentation. So thank you, Blake.
I just want to point out, we wrote this first goal very carefully because of the data from last year. We still feel horrible that we don't really know how we would have done. And so we did very carefully write it that it was based on our most recent data. We're not going to pretend like we had end of year data. But our most recent testing of students resulted in 39% being on level. We don't believe that would have been the case, but some kids were tested after December because of the way we do that testing. But our academic goal honestly didn't change because we didn't know if we got to realize it or not. We think we would have, but we didn't really have any proof. So we've chosen to still work towards that 60% of students. We also think that's more of an accomplishment than it would have been last year with what they're coming in at than those 2 months that we missed. And so our goal is to get to that 60% of our students will be on level at the end of the school year. And then our behavior, if you remember last year, our behavior goal was totally based on gaining some information. We didn't feel like it had been tracked for many years, and it was all about finding that information. So again, we wrote this so that we could compare apples to apples. COVID started the day third quarter ended, so that was pretty much the end of our behavior data. And so we're wanting to compare behavior data through the first 3 quarters of this year so that we're looking at the same thing. And so last year we had 56 office referrals in those first 3 quarters, and we want to see that go down by 20%, which would mean we had 45. It wouldn't go down 45, I can't do math, but it would end at 45. And so that's where we want to be. And we've done a lot of things that aren't going to show up on this to work towards that. We've noticed we have a big issue with respect. That's our biggest thing. As we looked at our behaviors, we could say most of that is they don't respect themselves or others. And so we've done a lot of work on defining what that means inside of our behavior so that we could reward the right things. So we started reinforcing the correct behavior. So there's been a lot of work on that. So as we go down to how we're going to use these funds, the academic goal, it looks like there's not a lot there, but we've already taken care of a lot of these needs through other things, through trust lands and through Title I funds. And there's a lot of money being thrown at reading, but the one thing we can't use from any of those is some incentives for kids who are leveling up. And they love nothing more than to get the little card that means they leveled up, and they see it hanging up, and we do a drawing every month, and they really do love that, and they work really hard to have their cards in there, sometimes 4 or 5 cards for one kid who leveled up a lot, and they can hardly wait to show you that and to walk up and hand those to me and say, I'm going up 5 levels this month. And so that's really the only thing we couldn't pay out of somewhere else is those incentives when they do level up. And so the rest of our money is on our behavior. A big chunk of that is our behavior intervention aid. And we feel very blessed again to not just get someone who wanted a job, but somebody who's truly interested in student behavior and is working towards their degree in social work. And so they're genuinely interested in this and wanting to learn about this. And they've been an amazing help in just these 3 weeks we've been there already, brought some new ideas to us. So they do more than they do man our refocus room, but they also help in tracking all of our positive and negative behaviors and are involved with the positive side of rewarding kids and accomplishing both purposes of the refocus room, that it's really a place a kid can go get a break so that they can behave, but also to remind students when they're not meeting our school expectations. And then we have some money for the incentives for our Coyote track that replaced our chief cards. We decided this year we're not trying to spell anything. We decided to focus on the 5 behaviors we thought would be most beneficial to our school-wide behavior, and we can see the most bang in that. So it doesn't spell anything. They're just the 5 most important things that we wanted to have kids work on. And then we've renamed our Ultimate Chief Award to the Alpha Award, tying into our new mascot. And one thing we did this year was it has 3 levels in it. We found some kids were reaching that, getting all of the areas of behavior in November, and then didn't have any reason to keep working. So now we have a bronze, silver, and gold level that those kids who get it early can keep working and get a better recognition for having got everyone twice and then 3 times. So we've revamped that quite a bit. So, any questions?
A lot of questions have been answered. They'd be the same questions. So yeah, thank you.
Well, maybe it's good to be last.
Thank you. Castle Heights.
Good afternoon.
Before we start, I just want to let you know I did a radio interview today, and they were kind of asking me about the huge decline that our kids have experienced. And while that is partly true, yes, I do want to brag on my staff. I just want to share with you that because of the dedication and the tenacity of my teachers, my first grade class last year came in on the Dibbles. I used the Dibble scores because that's all I had. At the first of the year, we had 69% of the students proficient. This year, even with COVID, because of what my teachers did, we had 61% come in proficient. So I was very excited about that with 5 months of not being in the classroom, yet those teachers' dedication to the virtual learning and still pushing out those phonics lessons was very exciting. For my second grade, digging down into the data, my second graders at the first of the year were 68% proficient in accuracy, 62% accuracy. Mid-year, they were 68% proficient as far as the accuracy, reading, and getting the words right. When we just tested them, we saw it slip to 59%. But again, with a 5-month doing virtual learning, I was very excited to see some of these test results. So I just wanted to share that. Yes, we have challenges. We know that we have challenges, but I'm also focusing on what we're doing right, and we're moving forward, so I'm very excited about that. Going to our TSSA money, the things that I wanted to really highlight, well, first of all, our school-wide goal, our proficiency composite scores, the best that we have to report were 62% in the spring. That was between December and March testing. We didn't have all of our testing done because of our school size when COVID hit. So we are setting the lofty goal of wanting to at least have a 68% proficiency by the end of this year. And we are actually finishing up our testing this week. We've done our one-on-one testing. We're doing additional diagnostic testing this week. So teachers are in the process of using that data to form their intervention groups, which will start next week. So that's our academics. Our behavior goal, last year I brought to my staff heroes in October. I wasn't surprised because, like myself, as teachers, once you have your classroom management in place and you're well in the way into the school year, it's really hard to change. And so compiling the data last year we did in grade levels, but as a school, we found out that it was very hard to compare that data because our data was all over the place. With that consensus, my school has agreed to get on board with HEROES to track the data in HEROES, and we have 4 categories, and it's our school rules. So our positives are be safe, be kind, be respectful, be responsible. And then at each grade level, kindergarten through 5th grade, the PLCs talk with their students, what does that look like for kindergarten? And 5th grade, what does that look like? But yet we're tracking that data. And then on the flip side, the negatives is being unkind, unsafe, disrespectful, or not being responsible. So as a school, we're on board, we're tracking the same thing, and even myself, I'm in there using that HEROES, tracking that data as well as SIS so that we have accurate data that we can bring to the school board at the end of each quarter when we need to report. So going through our academic goal, we want to continue to purchase academic programs advocated by PLCs to help support their Tier 1 in-class instruction and also Tier 2 intervention instructions for the small group instruction groups. And I'll tell you what, I have a group of lifelong learners. My teachers are always pushing themselves to do better, to be better, and always wanting to go to the next step. Last year, they came to me saying, we really would like to try this Reads Naturally program. It's an intervention program for Tier 2. Had a lot of success with that. We're continuing to using that. My first grade teachers came to me wanting me to purchase this Hegarty program. It's something that they're wanting to use, trying to meet the needs of all kids. So wanting to just have money there so teachers can look into those programs as tools. I still have the goal of having one-on-one devices in all classrooms, so I'd like to purchase some more Chromebooks or tablets. And then also have enough Chromebooks that my paraprofessionals have a Chromebook when they are doing the progress monitoring.
Are we on it?
To
We are third and up.
Oh, this is for the lower, okay.
And then providing some money for my tier 3 interventions. So tier 3 interventions, 8% of interventions, 8% of your kids should get their needs met in tier 1. And then about 10 to 15% might be that tier 2, that needs the tier 2, and then you get the tier 3 that needs intense interventions. So wanting to have some tutoring for students, 2-to-1 ratio for those students that really need additional practice for the tier 3 academic interventions, which is also part of the process of if a teacher has a concern with the student and wants to just put them in special ed, it's not just put them in special ed. We need to try interventions. We have to track interventions that we've done, track the progress, and document some of that before we do special ed referrals. So this is another tool, another thing I want to do to help with those interventions. And then have funds and stipends for my leadership team, our PLCs, to attend training in areas of focus as determined by the PLCs, myself, as we go through the school year. And then also provide stipends for teachers that need to attend trainings or required to do meetings during contract days or during non-contract hours. And then the rest is incentive, and I got a little bit scared, Kristen. I do kind of watch my money. I do have $5,500 in incentives that averages to $1.30 per student per month. So it is a lot of money. I have talked with my PTA, and where we have this focus on behavior this year, I've done a lot of things to restructure behavior, but speaking with my PTA, we wanted to pair the behavior reward with an activity, because as I was doing it last year, I found that the kids would rather have done the turkey trot with me than had an ice cream. And so it's pairing an activity with something else, because they really do.
That's what we're asking.
Yes.
They really do want to spend time with us. And if you kind of looked at my playground, you're going to see all new things on the playground, hopscotches and different game activities. So I gave a copy of all of the rules to the different game activities on the blacktop to my PE teacher and asked him if he'd spend the first few weeks of school taking the kids out for PE and teaching them how to play these games. I provided a copy to all my teachers, and I restructured my duty schedule this year so that all teachers go out on duty with their kids and we have smaller sizes, because the biggest thing for improving behavior is to, first of all, reduce the group size and to increase supervision, and then have structured activities when we look at the whole group. My outside recess looks very differently this year, so all my teachers and aides also have copies of the rules of how to play Foursquare and the hopscotch and different games out there. I also gave a copy to the PTA, and they are very interested in supporting that for our monthly behavior activity and coming out with the kids in small groups and facilitating those different games. So we're trying to pair up spending that time with the adults and incentives. So we do have money put aside again to support the behavior reward activities. And I do want to say I did go buy some bingo boards, because that was one activity the kids loved last year. I'm like, well, it's 5 bingo boards then, so I'm not borrowing from the church every month. And even the bingo boards. So it's just finding what the kids like to do. And then again, incentives for the hero points as determined by our grade level. And my counselor's actually wanting to do the Mighty Knight Award this year, and she's kind of working on the fine details of that to be shared with myself and my leadership committee, which we're actually having our meeting tomorrow. So I'm excited about that. And then again, providing student incentives to students that are on the tier 2, tier 3 behavior plans that hey, you know, buddy, you came to the office 5 times with your arms folded and took your medicine, that's been added us, you know, here's a sticker, and when you get 5 squares filled, then there's your pencil, or whatever it is the kid wants to work with, but just having those incentives for kids that need it. So we're just continuing to focus on increasing students' reading level and encouraging them to make adequate growth. And with our behavior, it's just having a school that promotes good citizenship, that's safe, that's fun, that the kids want to be there, that the teachers want to be there, the community wants to be there, and just have it be a safe place. Any questions for me?
Sounds great. Love your playground ideas.
No. All right, thank you.
And I tried to inform the board in that Principal Totticini had a family commitment, couldn't make it today, so she will be here next month with her TSSA plan and an amendment to her trust lands, because they're finding that they're kind of going a different direction than they had planned on last spring.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Is there a motion to adjourn to closed meeting for the discussion of the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual? See, I said it, so you don't have to say it.
So before I answer your question, are we required to approve their plans at
Yes,
this meeting?
that's in our actions.
Oh, that's further down on the agenda?
Yeah, it's on the agenda.
Gotcha. Okay, I was gonna say, I think we're missing a step. Yeah, we're still in the work meeting. Can we introduce our young friend over here?
I was really gonna embarrass him in the regular meeting.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, too.
Let's do it. Let's double up here.
Yeah,
All right, sure. All right, so I'm Hunter Heath. I guess I'm the student representative for the board. I guess if you just want me to tell about myself,
Yep.
like anything, okay. So I'm a senior over at Carbon High School. I'm the social science Sterling Scholar. Most of my time I've spent like around the drama room in the auditorium. That's where I am. Trying to think, over the last summer, I spent the last summer working at Intermountain Electronics under the internship program over there, and yeah.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Not that we're trying to exclude you, but just a little information. When we go to closed session, you don't come,
Oh, okay.
okay? Just so you know.
Yeah, for sure.
And what
And
else?
you can vote all you want, but it doesn't count.
Yeah.
So can I have like 5 or 10 votes?
That's right. You can vote. You can be the loudest of everybody. You go right ahead.
Just can't make the motion or, count yet.
Yeah.
Before we adjourn, could I ask Micah and you one question? Now, this internship you were doing for Intermountain,
Yes.
that's something that you helped set up, is that right, Micah?
Well, I mean, it's been going for quite some time, but the past 2 years, I've been working pretty closely with John.
And so what do you actually do there?
Yeah, so, I mean, they kind of have like, I'm trying to think how many paths set up. There's like 5, I believe, and it really depends on what you want to apply for. I think there was an electrical, a welding, a painting. It wasn't when I was there, they didn't have that down. I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but anyways, I was involved in the electrical, and you just work one-on-one under a mentor, and really you're just kind of doing the same exact thing you would be doing if you were just hired on there as an entry level. So you go, at least I did, I went for a week to a class before, just learning like the basic principles of how, just like basic circuit theory and that kind of thing. And after that, you kind of just work one-on-one under your mentor, and you're just doing that kind of, I guess, lower level, bottom of the food chain stuff over there. And then,
Get your foot in the door.
yeah, that kind of thing. Like, I'm not saying it's necessarily bad,
We
but
used to
like,
call it the bottom of the ladder, but I guess food chain works.
The door kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
absolutely. It's like, it's really real life. Like, you get there and it's totally serious. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. So,
That's great. I'm really glad to hear those stories. That's neat.
Okay,
Good job.
is there a motion?
I move that we adjourn to discuss the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been seconded. Lee? Aye.
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Aye. All right. Unanimous plus one. It's 5 o'clock, can I say that?
5:13.
5:13 in the afternoon. We are in our regularly scheduled board meeting. All board members are present, including our illustrious student member, Hunter. Welcome. We'll embarrass you here in just a little while.
All right.
But if all will rise, and Hunter will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I do not have anything here for public comment. Did you, Darren? Doesn't look like there's any public here. You're all masters of the universe out there. Okay. Recognition. Where is he? Is he out to one of the ball games somewhere?
He is. He's helping with the ball games. So I just wanted to make the board aware that Bruce has accomplished has done all the requirements and passed the test and everything to be a certified athletic administrator. And really appreciate him, his work, his especially as we worked through all of the communication and different versions of the spin plans for all the coaches and everything last year with the fee schedule. That was a huge amount of work, and he continues to just really step up and help us with the athletics more and more all the time. So kudos to him for getting that done.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's go down to reports. Superintendent, I'd like you to start here, and then we'll go down the roll here.
Okay, great. I've been asked to report on a couple of things: attendance, some teacher perspectives of the first couple weeks of school, and cafeterias. We have some principals here to help us with that one as well if there are questions. But I wanted to start out with the numbers of COVID-19. We have some positives associated with our school district. Prior to school starting, there were 2 students and 1 teacher who tested positive. Then after school started, we've had 3 students, 1 at the middle school, 1 at the elementary, and 1 at CVC, and then 1 classroom aide who have tested positive since then. Because of those positive tests, we have had to quarantine 5 teachers, 34 students at the high school, no students since school started. And we had some before school started with the cheerleading team and things, but since school started, we've only had at the high school 5 teachers. And then you, of course, add the 1 teacher up here, so a total of 5 teachers having to be quarantined at the high school. But middle school, 34 students, 1 teacher, 1 coach, and 1 aide. And all of those have returned. All of those teachers actually also have returned. And at Castle Valley Center, we had 4 students, 1 teacher, and 2 aides, and those returned on September 17th. I didn't mention that all of these prior to school starting were back before school started, these 2 students and the other kids that were quarantined at that time. That teacher came back a week after school started, I believe. And then we had, let's see, the 1 student has come back. Anyway, I can't remember all of these. We have the elementary kid and the CVC are still out on quarantine. But I guess my point is a lot of these have already come back from quarantine. So I do want to mention also that there are other students that are quarantined. So the numbers that you see are the ones that the health department tells us you had a positive. And then we go through the process of working together to try and figure out who ought to be quarantined. Now, if a student is quarantined because they spent an afternoon with grandpa and he tested positive, we don't necessarily hear about that. The student parent calls in and says, my student's not coming to school or whatever, and maybe they mentioned that the student's quarantined, but maybe not. So we just don't really have good numbers there. So just thought that would be important for you to know. For example, we do hear about the employees though. So we had three employees that notified us that they were quarantined, not because of anything to do with the school district, just because they had a family member that tested positive. And then for attendance.
Superintendent, can I ask you one legal
Sure.
question before we go on? What is the law or what is our policy if a teacher is quarantined for COVID? Like say there's a student in her classroom and I don't know, she has to be quarantined, that teacher. Do they have to use their sick leave for that?
No. No one who is quarantined because the health department tells them they need to be quarantined ends up using any of their personal. They have 14 paid days through the COVID portion of FMLA.
I knew there was some law,
Yeah, it's called Family First.
family first, okay, 14 days. So they have 14 days.
So they,
Okay.
they have 14 calendar days or 10
10
paid
paid
work
days.
days.
Okay, so in our district, let's say we have one teacher with really bad luck. She gets a kid and she has to stay home, and then she has another one and she has to stay home. At what point does it ever come out of, does she ever have to take personal leave?
Yes, there's a maximum of 10 paid days that can be taken due to COVID. So
Now, in some
outside,
states, are there laws,
It was a federal law.
a federal law? And that's the 10 days? Okay.
outside of that, they would have to use, if there's more need, they would have to use their own leave.
But isn't it also that a lot of our teachers, even in quarantine, can then teach remotely?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so if they're able to do that, they haven't used any leave.
Any of the time, yeah. right.
And
Yeah,
they
so you're not
save
counting
10
that, as
days,
long as, okay.
or if they're not
Okay.
able.
And they can save their quarantine days or their Family First days because
So
they're still teaching.
is it different if a teacher or the teacher is, let's say they just go to get tested because they have a couple of the symptoms and the hospital tells them, well, you need to stay home. So is that considered the same thing, quarantine, and they would be paid?
Yeah, the Family First talks about if they're quarantined, but also if they have symptoms and are seeking a diagnosis, because you don't want them coming in then either, and so that is covered as part of those 10 days. And whether the quarantine is physician recommended or health department mandated, both qualify.
And then they would come return to work when they got the positive or negative. I mean, if they got the negative,
Yeah,
they would return to
they
work
could return it.
and have notification that their test was negative. So they really only have those 5 days then, or whatever the
If they only
hospital says.
used, yeah, 3 or 4 or 5 days, then they still have, out of the 10 days that are given, they still, they may not use those all in one incident.
But I think it's also important to note that just because you pass somebody, say in the grocery store, who tested positive, doesn't mean you're exposed. It has to be a close contact for a minimum amount of time and then mandated either by your doctor or your public health.
It
Well, I
used to
would
be
think-
20 minutes, it's 10 minutes now.
I would think if you went and got tested, that's different than than just saying, well, I was around so-and-so for.
Right. For attendance, if we look at the attendance at the elementary year-to-date, here's some of the numbers that, and this is just fresh, right? Because we haven't had, this is just up through the 4th, but we haven't had a ton of school days yet. You can see the number of students absent on each of the days at each of the schools. So if you were to pick, let's say just the middle school, Creekview, you're looking at high teens, low 20s with, a high of 34 there. Now, if you look at the.
May I point out, that was a Friday.
Oh, yeah, right.
Well, and the next Friday that showed 35 was the day before Labor Day.
Right. So we are gone a lot on Fridays.
This one is over the years. So again, if you look at Creekview, you're seeing low teens, high 20s, in the 30s. So it's not like we're seeing a crazy amount of absences. We're seeing what we would pretty much see in school. And then in secondary, this is just an attendance comparison. This is the percentage of students who are absent. This is the average for a whole school year. So we have a terribly small sample size over here. But, and we only have 3/4 worth here. So, but if you look at it, we're not way off of where we would normally be here either. And Mount Harmon, we're actually lower than what we, but again, small sample size, it's really hard to really say that at this point, but.
In 2019-20, 1/4 of that is 100% attendance for 4 quarters. So it's skewed the data a little. So
Oh yeah, that's a great
you
point.
don't really want to ignore
So
that.
yeah, well, you could probably just ignore that one, but.
Somebody's a numbers person.
But the numbers are very similar.
Keith, how come you didn't get that?
Nobody wants to hear me talk.
So the other thing that I was asked to kind of share a little bit is teacher perspectives. We don't have enough time in this meeting to read through all of these, but I'd like you to take a minute.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
They are really cool.
Yeah.
Teachers just, I asked the principals to just find somebody in their school who would like to share what their experience was like. And so it was really fun to see these. Kind of a universal theme that I saw was amazing students who are, the nightmare that we thought it was going to be just isn't. And we see that they're happy to be back. They want to be in school. And we're seeing really good things. And we see on top of that, just you can almost feel the dedication and the love of students that these teachers have as you read through it. That's what it's all about. These teachers are amazing. And then finally, I was asked to kind of share a little report on cafeterias. I have to confess, I have not yet indulged in the chaos of the cafeterias. I've gone to all the cafeterias and taken a look at their setup, but I haven't seen them yet while students are there. So I had the principals take some pictures just so you can kind of see what that's like. This is Castle Valley Center, and as you can see, students are spread out. Castle Valley Center, they have a lot of students who simply cannot wear masks. So social distancing is even more important there. Hey, where's the rest of them?
But I'd like to add to I have a neighbor who he's in his mid-20s and he attends Castle Valley Center. And he got off the bus on my way, I stopped for the bus as he was coming. And he had his mask on, he jumped off the bus, ran over to the house, just, I don't think the mask requirement is affecting the kids at all.
Right.
They'll adapt, they'll do what they need to do to go to school.
And this is Castle Heights. You can see there's nobody on the other side. And that's one of the things in there, and they're trying to space out in between. Sally Morrow, they took it even a step further, and they are going across the table, but they're putting up the little barrier, which makes it really nice, and they're skipping seats. So you can see there's a little X on half of the seats. That means you can't sit there, to help with that. And then this is Creekview. It's really great. They're social distancing, and the way their tables are so awesome because they're like benches, and if you set them up like this, you can't have students across from you anyway.
Which will probably never change even after this, but they behave better too.
COVID's over, that's okay.
And then this is Helper Middle School. Same thing, we have these little barriers. These have a little sticky Velcro, so you can remove these, clean the tables, and then when you're ready to set back up, you just stick them right back on the Velcro. So that's kind of nice. Again, we are trying to accomplish something very difficult, and that's to serve lunch to all of our students in a time frame that allows us to continue to teach, that doesn't extend that lunch period, so long. And
10 to 2.
and also do it in a safe way for COVID. So it's just awesome to see everyone rise to the challenge and figure out ways to, here's one of the more creative, the curtain rod, the shower curtain approach. And that's at Bruin Point. And they made these out of PVC, and they said, we're just gonna separate them so there's nobody sitting across from the kids, but they can still see each other and they can still talk. So I thought that was a pretty creative solution also.
You'd love to see how Virginia High, they
Yes,
have
you
the
will.
boys eat first because, they wanted to make the lunchroom not have as many students. So the boys eat first, and I asked Mr. Bradley why that was, and he said because they eat really fast and then they get out. So my husband was
That's
home
true.
the first day, and he was like at the window in amazement, and I said, what's wrong? I thought there was like a fire or something. Those kids burst out of the school like they've come out of a rocket. And they do social distance a little bit, but honestly, they just are so happy to be with their friends. It's
Yes.
just,
They're loving it
yeah.
from what we're hearing.
Now the girls are a little more refined, not much, but they burst out slowly.
They burst out slowly? All right, is that it, Superintendent? All right, Lee?
I just have a question. I was wondering where we were at with enrollment. What has our enrollment changed since last year, this year?
Oh, can Stacy and Micah help us out here a little bit?
Yeah, I'm giving exact numbers if you
Well,
want.
I just.
We just need kind of ballpark.
Yeah.
right?
Do you have a number of the online for each school?
Is that what you're asking?
Both. I would just like to know where we're at.
Break
with-
it down for us.
So we have at Helper Middle School, 9 or 10 full-time online students. At Mount Harmon, we're 35 by last count. Carbon High, we're around 85. Those are full-time online enrolled, so they're still our students.
They are coming back though.
They are starting,
So
coming
they're-
back.
We've had 5 or 6 come back from last week. We're realizing that the online is harder than they thought it would be, and they would rather be back in the school.
And I believe we've had 8 in middle school come back. So at Bruin Point, we have 15 students that are attending Carbon Online. At Castle Heights, no, it's actually a little less than that. They're closer to 20 now. Creekview is right around 40, 39, 40. I gotta see if one student has come back. 13 at Sally Morrow and 14 at Wellington. That's just Carbon Online students. And we are seeing some of them come back, but as I've said way too many times in the last few days, I'm not celebrating or saying anything, because every time I say that, I get 2 new ones to enroll, so we are still picking up students in the online program. It didn't just happen when school started, there are situations.
So we haven't lost any kids with this, I mean, we're.
Yeah, so what's our overall enrollment? in the
We have
district?
more
We
homeschooling.
have lost
Yes.
homeschool students, yeah,
So what is the enrollment then?
that's why this is down, so.
It's 3,410, including preschool right now.
Including preschool.
Including.
So you take out, what is
So
that number?
108 in preschool, so about 3,302.
That's a couple hundred down. yeah.
That's, yeah.
But that's not all homeschool loss. I mean, we've had some families move away, different things, but I don't have a homeschool number for you.
When I was kind of comparing the homeschool affidavits to our online, it was almost 50-50, the same number of students that enrolled in a personal, were doing their own curriculum to taking our curriculum. So I think a lot of that loss is some moving. I don't think it's all homeschool students.
Well, some we don't know because they don't always turn in their numbers
They've
too.
been dropped because we can't get them to either come in or we can't find them.
Right, so we don't know what's
Yeah.
happened.
And
Okay.
there's been quite a few drops.
Good question, Lee, thanks. Jeff?
We have most of our principals here. Could you just pass on to your staffs that we recognize that, I mean, when was it, May? We put signs out on people's yards and stuff like that just because we appreciated all that they were doing from March, April, and May, but I think it might be redundant to try to put signs out again in September. But again, we recognize the kids love being in school. They love their principals. They love their custodians. They love their teachers. They love the secretary, the librarian, the aides, the lunch ladies. They just really, really enjoy being at school. I don't know that we'd have 0.1% of kids who would choose not to be in school if they weren't being influenced because of health or some other issue. So tell your staffs that we recognize the success of the district is because of them.
Oh, yeah, all the success in the district is because of them. We recognize that left and right. We recognize how blessed we are in a Carbon school district because of the staff of the Carbon school district. As we look around the state, as the news, all the difficulties every other district seems to be going through, our staff are all-stars. They just roll up their sleeves and not just roll up their sleeves and trudge through it. They want to roll up their sleeves and do it, and it shows. We're so appreciative of that and understand that's going on. Really do.
And if you look at the homeschool requests from this month and August, we are at 84. So that's the number to go off of because we didn't have any homeschool requests in July or June.
Okay. All right, thanks for looking that up. Anything else, Jeff?
Nope.
So outside of what I already said, Superintendent, do we have full beginning of year testing data available yet?
It's coming in. We have,
Assessment, no,
Oh.
beginning of year assessment.
and for in the elementaries, I think we're done with our reading level tests. Those are being entered into our spreadsheet that we created by our coaches. We shared that with them on Tuesday morning,
Yeah,
right? So
they're working on
they're working on that. And also Dibbles as well. Any secondary assessments going on?
Well, the QRI, that's, the reading levels are started at Mount Herman, I believe. But I haven't seen any finished data yet.
When you get that, will you just forward it to us?
I will.
You don't necessarily need a presentation and board meeting, just get us that information. Thank you. Kristen?
I want to talk about the success that remote learning has been having. I've been talking to teachers, especially when a kid goes out on quarantine or whatever. The kids love that they can actually log into, sign into their class, and the teacher loves that they're doing exactly what the class is doing, so they don't have to prepare extra or whatever. So my question is, where are we at with remote learning? Does every single teacher have that ability in our district? Or can it be set up if they need it, or?
Every teacher has the technology to do it, and we have had training in all the buildings. But I think we still find that when the need arises, there's always questions and things, but that's what we have our digital learning person. She's a phone call away, and she just helps them right out with anything that they need to get all set up and ready to go.
I think that's great for the kids because they don't feel as isolated and.
I just want to say too, on that same note, because we had teachers doing the remote teaching. And so you have a teacher remote teaching, and in the same class, a student remote learning, while there's students in the classroom with the sub monitoring, and it actually went very, very smoothly. The teachers were able to stay in contact with their classes. There was very little lag time, even though teachers missed 7 to 8 school days. In the core academic classes, they kept up. Obviously, some classes where it's hands-on, things like that, there's a little bit of a lag time if the teacher is out, because some things don't necessarily lend themselves to remote, PE, weight training, wood shop, and things like that. But honestly, we were so overly impressed with how easy it was for the teachers to teach remotely and for the students to be able to get in and stay caught up. It's been really very nice.
One of the teachers told me the only disadvantage is she wanted to grab a kid by the collar and.
Just can't do that anymore.
I did read through the comments by the teachers, and I had one question about something. I think it was a kindergarten teacher that was talking about, the children all came back with masks, but a lot of little children don't have little enough masks. Is that something that we can order for these?
We have those,
Do you?
and they've been distributed to the schools.
Oh, good.
I would actually say what she's talking about is they're actually too small. Some of the masks the parents are getting don't stay over their nose because they actually are buying such a little mask that all day long they're doing
This,
this
okay.
because they're not.
But we
staying
do
up.
have small ones if somebody needs them, because if you're kindergarten.
We give them out all day, every day in elementary school because they leave them on their lunch tray and throw it away, or
Hey,
It's
it happens. It kind of happens when you're 70 again.
Oh, you should not have opened that door.
Wait, I just can't wait till you're 70.
And I deserve every bit of it, so I might as well earn it.
Get closer every day.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Listen.
First of all, I have a question about the remote learning. Is there a requirement, can a student just decide 1 week they want to do remote learning?
So we started off the year with the thought process that every class would just be broadcast all the time. And that proved to be very, very challenging. And so what would happen is you'd have a student who wakes up with the sniffles and says, I'm not going to go to school today. And then 10 minutes into the period, they're emailing the teacher saying, hey, I want to get logged in. Well, the teacher's already started teaching, so they're calling the office and running around. So we actually sent an email out to all students to kind of clarify the remote learning. So what we've said is, if you wake up with the sniffles and you're going to be sick for a day, be sick for a day. No different than you would have ever been at any other time, because it's hard for the teacher that quickly to make sure everything's ready to go on a minute's notice. But if you're going to be gone for that 2 days to 3 weeks span, and you're going to be out either self-quarantined, health department quarantined, or whatever, then email the teacher directly, hey, I'm going to be gone, I'd like to participate in remote learning. We told the teachers within 24 hours, make sure it's set up, you've contacted students, they know where the links are, and then the students can get in and follow along. And that's worked really well. We still have some occasionally who will wake up and say, I have a headache today, I'm not gonna go, I'd like to be remote in your class, and we're just responding and saying, if you feel better tomorrow, come to school, you missed a day, you'll catch up.
So the teacher doesn't have the responsibility to pay
No.
attention to that student, okay.
Correct, yeah, we've actually tried to put that responsibility on the parent and student to reach out to the teacher. Now, some teachers, honestly, they do turn their camera on every class, and they don't care if a student just jumps in, but we didn't want to make that a mandate that it's always on all the time. We wanted them to have it ready to go, so the great thing with the Google Meet links is they're good for, I think, 90 days or something. So they create one link for the entire quarter, and that link is on their Canvas or on their Google Classroom or whatever. So the students don't have to keep asking for a new one, and the teacher doesn't have to create a new one. It's the same one for each class period, has a separate one. So if they're home, they email the teacher, and then the next day, if they're gonna be gone, they can click on it, and they're right in and ready to go.
I don't know how the other secondary are working, but the elementary, at least Creekview, is not working like that. That the kid can decide, the parents can decide that day to, and then work with the teacher to log in that day if they have the sniffles. Because we want them to still participate and still be part of the class and still get their attendance, so.
And stay home if they're sick.
Right, and still stay home if they're sick. So I don't know if that's how all secondary schools are working, but, and I don't know if that's how all elementaries are working either, but.
And we're really leaving it up to our teachers to decide, like, you know, they'll tell the parents, the student is on from 9 to 10:30 and 12:30 to 2. Those are the things they need to do today. The rest of the time, it would be hard to participate. They don't have to sit there for 6 hours straight as an elementary student, but we're giving them specific times they need to join, and if they do what we ask, then they're still marked there for the day.
Okay.
You know, I've just been thinking as an old-time teacher, you know, it could be really creative, like, sometimes you could maybe suggest to a student they do remote.
Absent a little bit. Is that what my teachers were saying all the time?
Yeah, if they had it in your days, you would have been home.
How come no one was ever mad when I wasn't there? Yeah.
Come tomorrow, Wayne.
Except for your mom. You take another day, yeah.
There's a teacher that's doing it and watch, it's amazing.
It's really
I watched the teacher put the computer on her desk so she could see the student, and she would check on that student the same time as if she would have if they were at their desk. She would just scan the room, and when she got to the computer, would check in with the kid and keep going.
It's just normal, like
It
they're
was
looking at
just
the kid.
a normal checking in as if they were in the room, and it's amazing to watch. They're getting better and better at it every day. It's really cool. We're trying to share those things with each other so that they learn from each other. It's really, really quite.
So like, this is a positive COVID moment.
So I did go visit, the first and second day of school. I hit a few of the schools, took some pictures. They all gave me thumbs up. It was great to walk down the halls. I didn't see anybody that didn't have a mask on. It kind of almost felt eerily calm. But I think it was the masks, because I know the kids were excited to get back. So this is just some classrooms. Mr. Chilcott's, Miss Carlson's, she had her back to me. But they were all, the kids were all, this was over at, that's Dakota Cisneros, Mont Harmon. So I went to Carbon and Mont Harmon. You don't have to hit all of them, but, oh, this is Creekview. This happened to be my grandson's class. So I did grab a picture with him. There we are. Aww. But I went to Mont Harmon, Carbon, Helper, Creekview, and then the next day I went to Castle Valley Center. And they were all, I mean, they were really, it was nice. It was calm. The teachers all seemed happy. The kids were happy to be there. So just, oh, it was Keith's birthday on the first day.
Oh, he's laughing in here.
I know, he just left. But they were all giving thumbs up. They were excited to be there. I hit those Castle Valley ones. So this was what the class was doing at Castle Valley when I was there. Couple of them pushing the other two, and then Pete, that's over at Helper, so. Kind of similar to some of the pictures that you had. so. Anyway, yeah, I thought it was it seems to be a great start. I know that there's
Good thing there were
you
masks
know,
there because
a
I was
lot
not
going
social
on
distancing.
with
So-
online and everything. What's that?
So the next day, we took those couches out because social distancing with the couches
Yeah.
This
became
doesn't work.
impossible to,
Yeah.
we're like, okay, that's not gonna work, so we actually.
But they had their masks on.
But they did have
so
their masks on.
That was good. Anyway, thank you.
All right.
And I do, yeah, it looks like teachers and everybody is going very
It's
well.
funny to see if the kids
Can
are
I say
smiling under their masks.
something? I went to every school through high school, we created a little video for Facebook, I don't know if you saw it. And we went to every school, I went to every school, and I thought maybe I might be filming disaster, okay? And I couldn't believe how smooth everything was, and how everybody was working together. You know, from an outsider's perspective, the kids were just amazing, and the little video just came out so well, because it just flowed. I mean, they were just there, they were doing what they're supposed to do, it was really cool. So, my perspective, it went really well that first day, and I just thought, I was kind of surprised.
I was at Sally Merrill, and the thing that amazed me was that it was quiet. You know, I don't know what I expected. I
Can't
guess
talk
I
to them with
expected
your
chaos, but it was
it was-
just school. It was quiet.
You can't
They
hear
were all
it.
in there. Good. It's all good.
We're trying to find the principal who was cameled up. Hunter, give us the student perspective.
Yeah, so going with like the remote learning and that kind of thing, I think that that's really nice from a student perspective to be able to have that cushion. Because that was kind of one of the things when school, I heard that was first opening up that I was concerned about is like, if I am put in a situation where I do have to quarantine for 2-3 weeks, whatever, like how am I ever going to be able to catch up? And just being able to like, just knowing that that's there is one of the nicest things. I don't know, it just feels more forgiving, like if something happened like that. And the mask thing too, like I really thought there was gonna be a lot of people fighting the masks and that kind of thing. But I would say 99.9% of the time, like I see everybody with their mask on. So I think it's been really good.
Good. Well, take a moment to introduce yourself to us here.
Okay, so I guess everybody's pretty much heard it already, but I'm Hunter Heath. I'm the student representative. I guess some.
Tell us who your parents are.
Matthew and Shelley Heath. I don't know if anybody knows them. My mom is a professor over at USU. She teaches the CNA and medical terminology. And my dad's a case manager for the Veterans Administration. So they're both nurses. And yeah, so that's where I come from. Not the path I want to follow, but it's fine. Yeah, dinner table discussions have like voided me off that path. But hey, I didn't really need to hear that.
Teaching a CNA class would just be disturbing.
Yeah. But yeah, so as I mentioned before, I'm the social science Sterling Scholar. I didn't mention before, I'm a member of the Youth Council. So I know that they wanted to be here at least, but then the mayor canceled, so I don't know. But I mentioned I did the time at IE. I'm a really big drama kid. I didn't think anything else.
Okay.
He has the prerequisite red hair.
Yeah,
that's right.
It does. Beautiful.
That's right. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right. Let's move on then. Youth
So,
Council's not
I
here.
wanted to inform the board, I got a text late last night that Mayor Corianis said that it just wasn't going to be possible this month, and he apologizes, but they would definitely want to be on the agenda for next month. They just want the Price City Youth Council to share with the board some of their exciting ideas and some of the things that they're working on. Nothing too serious, just they want to inform you about what they're doing, so.
Great. We look forward to it. All right, let's move on to the action items. First, item on the agenda is the approval of the school TSSA plans. We do have a little bit of disadvantage that we did not have an actual presentation from Bruin Points, but we had all the information, so it's all there that we were able to read.
And they're gonna bring that next month.
They are going to come in
They
October.
are going to be able to present, but we do have the information that we can approve here. So if there's any further discussion or concerns with any of the TSSA plans?
I'll move to approve the school TSSA plans.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? With none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the revision to the early literacy plan.
We'll turn that over to Stacy.
So this is revisiting when we had our emergency board meeting on a Friday afternoon, I believe. But we submitted it and I received some feedback from the state and they wanted some specific lingo added in there. One was they know that writing is combined throughout the day, but they said it should say a minimum of 30 minutes, so we're just meeting their requirements. They also wanted some clarification or some specific curriculum that's being used within our tier 2. So I just everything that's highlighted is where I've added specifically what they wanted clarification on. And they also wanted to know that last sentence under tier 2, they wanted to know how and when do we determine a student needs to be moved from tier 2 to tier 3. So it's through a process of analyzing data and having a discussion and creating paths. So I just added the curriculum in tier 2 and tier 3, as well as that sentence of how we analyze who's moving. So it wasn't significant changes, but I did need to bring that before you to let you know what was added to the plan and to receive your approval again, to resubmit it. It should be approved just fine this time, so.
On the writing one, it said, it could be combined with other skills.
So you mean
Like across the curriculum, if they did it in
Correct,
history
yes.
or, okay.
Yes, across the curriculum. I mean, you're gonna have some direct writing instruction, but you're also doing writing tasks that you're giving feedback and.
So you're
teaching
really
writing
meaning
skills.
content areas, is that right?
Anything that's literacy based, so you could, and this is K through 3, so we're talking early literacy. So most of this writing is going to be response to reading, or specifically a writing response
Okay.
to a prompt. And 30 minutes is a fair number. It's more than that throughout the day, but that's required.
Yeah, I was gonna say, by the time you get done with history and science, you've been writing way more.
Well, and we're talking
This
the
is
younger
K3.
grades, K and 3,
Yeah, that's
that
true,
are
too.
not doing a lot of history writing, but you are responding
Yeah.
to reading. So that's a significant writing skill, different than writing to a prompt. So you do have to learn 2 different styles of writing.
Thank you for responding and getting those specifics in there. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But with that, I would actually like to recognize the state for actually reading.
Do you want to put that in the memo? They want the minutes.
You know,
I'll leave that.
I'm impressed that they actually read these and gave
Responded
feedback and
back, yeah.
responded. But thank you, Stacy, for doing that. Any further questions before she sits down? Hurry, she's sitting there. Okay. All right, then, is there a motion to approve the revised early literacy plan?
I would move that we approve the revised early literacy plan for school year 2020, 2021.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? With none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, did I hear ayes out there?
You heard me say
I thought I- So unanimous plus 1. Plus 2, Hunter, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's being really good. He's not saying anything. He was told he can't.
I vote twice.
I told him he can vote all he wants, it just doesn't count.
know, it's kind of nice to hear his opinion though.
Yeah,
It really
and
is.
please be prepared
Yeah.
because you're, and as we read through this, okay,
Jump in anytime.
yes, yeah, please do. You probably count more than Jeff does, so.
You think?
For sure. All right, let's move on to policy 509, admissions and attendance compulsory education, which is big policy. Lots of stuff going on with that policy.
This was most recently updated by the attorneys that work for USBA in June. So it reflects all the most recent legislation and state board rule. And as we read through it, we didn't see anything in here that we would want to do differently than what the law requires. So.
They want to add more to it anyway.
But we did have to add some things that are required by state law, actually by board rule. And that's at the very bottom of the green that you see. And it's 509.16, 17, and 18. These are the three things that they have required us to do that there's no way that they could do any model policy for because every district is so different.
And that's just defining remote, virtual, and carbon online.
Right, and how we're gonna count attendance for those.
All right, did anybody see anything in this? I mean, I walked through it, but I think I got lost a couple of times.
Yeah, if
walking
we're
through it.
just,
So,
Yeah,
if
if
we're just marrying up to what the state wants, I don't see any.
well, I have confidence that the attorneys for the USBA put this together, and then you were thoughtful enough to read through it and put the things that the rule requires that the USBA didn't or couldn't put in.
Right.
You know, Lance, when we look at remote learning, just out of curiosity, so let's say, heaven forbid, we do have to, cease, school for, just a little bit. So what you're saying to us is we're really ready. Every teacher could do some remote teaching. I mean, certainly not all day. That would be crazy, but they could designate so many hours or periods during the day when kids would be expected. So we could do that.
Yes, and we actually transition if it's anything for kind of a longer period of time and everyone is out, we transition to that virtual learning. And that's where the high school and the secondary schools would use Canvas or Google Classroom as their platform. So it wouldn't be so much tune in and watch the class. It would be you go to your online portal and the teacher will have the activities that you need to do for that day. And in elementary, it's all Google Classroom. Or our kindergarten and first grade could choose to use packets that parents come and pick up because it's a little more difficult sometimes for those kindergartners to try and do all online stuff. But for everyone
Wait,
else.
have you watched your 3-year-old get on your iPad?
Yeah. Productive.
That's too
Work
much
on
fun. Learning phonics isn't always fun. So we have a hard time.
Gotcha, okay.
So that's.
Or they
so-
could do a variety of those things. So like Monday we'll do, remote learning. Tuesday
They could do some remote, and that's the idea, like kind of what happened over the last quarter of the last school year is teachers would have certain times when they would get on and they could see the students and the students could see them. That's definitely something that could still happen. But the platform is where we're kind of focusing. The teachers are gonna, if you're teaching 5th grade, you need to use Google Classroom and put all the activities that need to be done for that time frame. And we won't go more than 2 weeks unless the governor does something crazy. But that's the intent, is that for that 14 days of quarantine, we'll use that online platform with Google Meet as one of the things that we could use, but there's a lot of other things that teachers can put in.
Now, a side note on that, just, I know there's anxiety, people with anxiety over what's going to happen. And we can't change that for November or December, but right now, everything's trending in the right direction. So all the officials in the state are all saying that everything's going in the good direction right now. So we're not, oh no, what's gonna happen, it's gonna, we're going good. And so it'll take a little bit of going down before we get there, so.
That's
Just
good. And I feel like with school starting and we're still trending in a good direction, I think that's pretty impressive.
I have a crazy question to ask. Let's say, like, we get to a point in our district where we wonder if just a week out of school would help, just a week or 10 days. Do we have that latitude to just say we're gonna take like a little break? And you're going yes, and Wayne's going
Yeah,
no?
well, with the blessing of the health department.
Yeah.
So that's who we contact first and we say, is this needed? Do you recommend that we do this? And then, but,
What would make you call the health department?
so right now we have all of the schools are monitoring their attendance. And then when they see anything that's unusual or 30% of their population
That's
is
what I
out,
was kind of wondering.
then they notify me and then we dig deeper and we try and see, do we have kids out, are they all ill? Do we have one class that has like 80% of their kids gone? That's a huge red flag. And then that's when we decide to talk to the health department, get their guidance.
Okay. I kind of wondered how that worked. And it's
Okay.
too bad we don't have a little extra time after things. Families all get together. It's too bad we can't
We'll see
figure out a
2 weeks after
little,
Thanksgiving
like,
where we're
if we could take a few days, I don't know.
That's why higher ed is saying, don't come back after Thanksgiving.
I know.
Yeah. But it's the same thing with Labor Day, so
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
okay, back to the policy here. Okay. Did we table this last time?
We did, so this is
a
actually the first reading.
Yeah, we looked at it. I would move we approve policy number 509, admissions and attendance for compulsory education as a second and final reading.
When Jeff says it, that's a
I
third.
second it.
It's been moved and seconded. All right.
Right on.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, it is approved as final reading. Okay, now back to policy, which one was it? 302?
302.
Okay. Now, this one was a little bit
Yeah.
large font, little words. I was
Easier to handle.
There were pictures.
So the history on this one is and I apologize if this is just too much of an introduction, but we have had some problems with, when I came, I heard that people were showing up to get paid at the business department because they were an assistant coach. Business department didn't have them in the system. They hadn't done a background check. And all they knew is that they were hired and they just started helping, right? But no process was followed. So, we worked on requiring even assistant coaches to have to follow the same hiring procedure as everybody else, because that catches them in our system and it means that we know who they are and we make sure they get their background check and all those things. So if they're following through that system, it really makes a big difference for us. However, for an assistant coach, it seems like overkill sometimes for something like that. So we're trying to address the concerns coming from coaches and principals regarding some of these extracurricular positions. Also, if you're hiring, let's say you're hiring a debate coach, an advisor. That's maybe not a good one, a student body officer advisor. You might only have one person who wants to do it. So the idea that you're going to advertise for 2 weeks and you're going to have an interview committee and everything for that position just doesn't really seem logical. But we can't not have it go through our process, because then we wouldn't know what's happening. So we've kind of approached it in a way that co-extracurricular positions may be advertised internally only. So they still have to be advertised because that puts them on our radar. And then the positions only have to be advertised for 1 week, so that helps expedite the situation. And then interviews for those positions could be done informally, in other words, without a committee, with the exception of a head coaching position. That one would still need to follow the rest of the policy that's up above, the 302.3, which requires the whole deal with the committee and everything. So that's trying to solve those problems and help the principals and coaches out.
So I have a concern, and it's been ongoing for years with this, the co-extracurricular positions, co-curricular assistant coaches, whatever you're going to call them. And that is the issue of nepotism. On the one hand, you know, you have an administrator whose son or daughter gets put in a position and they say, it wasn't me, I didn't hire them. You know, there's this person who they report to. And then that person who they reported to would hire somebody else who was their relative. They report to this administrator.
Yeah.
And so they're passing each other back and forth. And so I think we need to be very cognizant that a principal doesn't hire their son or daughter or relative. The athletic director from a school or district doesn't hire their son or daughter or in-laws. A coach doesn't have their son or daughter working with them, for them, whatever. You know, it's just hands out, off.
We did, and I agree wholeheartedly. However,
and I understand
we
sometimes
have
you gotta have a
one
situation.
applicant. So sometimes, I don't know, in a small town, it's
Well,
difficult.
that's, and maybe we could put the clause in there without your approval to go in
Yeah.
there, but I think a pretty hard line needs to be that a head coach isn't that direct relative to the principal, and an assistant coach, I mean, you
Yeah.
can't say that this person doesn't supervise him because this person does, and then the next one is, well, we can't do that, so this person's going to supervise him. They've got to have that change, so a
Direct
coach doesn't
supervisor.
hire an assistant coach that's a relative. That, I think that needs to be pretty hard, but other than that, with the exception that maybe we allow you, which puts you setting precedent,
Right.
which you have the guideline that, hey, this is pretty hard. Fine. Which does put flexibility for small town, but not much.
Right. I think we could definitely, if you'll indulge me for a second, I want to see what I can't remember what we have on nepotism.
What we have on nepotism just says that we will follow the state law.
I mean, sometimes here, there's no point in putting in because they're gonna do the relative anyway.
So the purpose, so that defines
I think a relative is too.
what a relative is.
And is that a smiley face you got after?
Oh, I just love being able to use it. Red pen.
This helps. I mean, if they're the only person available, they're the only one that applies. That's really the situation that gets us. Because some of these assistant positions, you only get one. But if there's someone else, then that makes it a lot easier.
Okay, so going back to what Jeff says, perhaps this is the best thing to make sure that we understand that the principal doesn't supervise the assistant coaches, the coach supervises the assistant coaches.
Now, wait a
You know,
minute,
we
say
can't-
that again, but.
Well, I think that's how we've made the justification sometimes when a coach has hired a son. We've said, okay, the principal is going to supervise that son,
Okay.
and we jumped the coach.
But here's that's the problem we've run into is a principal hires their son as the assistant coach and says the coach supervises.
He didn't do it, I did. I mean, he didn't hire, I did.
Well,
You know,
the
it's-
principal doesn't hire the assistant coaches, the coach does.
That's the way we've looked at it. We've looked at it as, you can't be the direct supervisor of someone
Yeah.
who you're related to. If you're a couple levels up, one level up, two levels up, then that's a whole different story. You can legitimately say, you know, that person doesn't supervise this person out here.
So is the argument then that the principal can't put enough pressure on the head coach to hire his son or daughter?
You shouldn't put any pressure on.
Yeah, shouldn't. And if we
I
find out
understand
that,
that.
if we found out that was happening, that would be a a situation we'd have to deal with because that's not appropriate.
Reprimandable type of thing.
Well, I don't think there'd be any outward pressure, but, you know,
Well, but
if
you never.
you're my
avoid
head
that.
coach and I'm the principal and I want you to hire him, you just say, let's put my son on. Okay. That's gonna be the whole conversation.
That should be in the training.
So do we want to put something in that policy that references nepotism? That,
Any more than what's here?
You know, I think that would make it, not easier for Lance, but clearer. Like, you know, like, this isn't like just a subjective decision. There is a policy about this.
Mhm.
So I think we should put it in there. Does that, do you, I mean, it gets really hard in a small town.
And I don't know how to fix it for every situation.
Could it be that if that happened, though, there had to be something that says why it was that way? I mean,
So what if the assistant coach, the coach hires their son or daughter as the assistant coach because they were the only person that applied?
but it says in nepotism you can't.
Well, this covers that.
In our
This allows
policy, it
it.
says
Says you
that you
can't.
can't.
Is the suggestion to change the co-curricular policy or the nepotism
The
policy?
nepotism.
Yeah.
Or just refer to.
So that's what I'm thinking. If we put the language like Wayne is saying that we don't do that unless it's approved by the superintendent, that gives us a little bit of
Yeah,
And then they have to come to you and
leeway.
explain
They
it.
have to explain, and I would have to say, well, did you fully advertise? Did you
Yeah.
get the word out?
Yeah.
I can even ask them to run it for 2 weeks instead of 1 week.
Mhm.
And then see what happens, you know, so there's some things that could happen that could, and then after all that, if there's still nobody,
If they're still
Well,
the
then you
best
feel-
person,
then
what
you
if there
feel
is
like-
somebody and then
What if
they're
there
still the
is?
best person? You
It
know,
says best person there, doesn't it?
but I mean, if you've got a coach and they're hiring an assistant coach and you put it out there and you have 2 people apply and one of them is the son or daughter and the other one comes on, do we want to block that son or daughter because they may be the better assistant
Well, I think
coach?
then you need to have a hiring committee instead of, you know, because it's saying there that you can do it without a hiring committee.
Perhaps that would be a way to get
That's a
through
pretty
it.
good solution.
That's right. If there's a case where you're going to have to pick someone because they're either the only applicant or they're the best applicant and they're related, then that must go through the committee.
Hiring committee.
Yeah. the hiring
Gets it off you. and puts it
Yes,
back on.
yes.
I think
I like
that's a
that.
good idea. That's a really good idea.
Okay, put that in there.
okay,
That seems to have got consensus in a hurry.
But it is, that's a logical thing.
I'll put that in there and we'll. So help me one more time, just make sure that I've got it. We're gonna add, if the hire is a
If the
relative,
prospective hire
So on this number
fits
3.
fits the definition of nepotism,
I'm just gonna do it right here. I don't want to write it down. Okay.
Maybe
Yeah, we
that should
changed- we
inform them
changed it
without
to
a
here.
hiring committee unless they,
In the event,
or in the event.
best candidate is,
We say top.
Okay, top candidate.
A relative, the prospective supervisor.
So is this more appropriate in the nepotism policy? I mean, is this only
No,
a
this may go,
situation
I
that?
think we changed it to here.
It directly relates to the hiring committee.
But only of
Yeah.
coaches, so we don't see
Why-
this ever being the case of an aide or.
Why did you put perspective?
Because it is the supervisor.
I guess all the
Because it's the
positions would go
prospect.
through.
Because they haven't been hired, so they're not the supervisor yet, but
Well, the supervisor is already there.
yeah, that's right. So then we just say,
Yeah, I think you have your certified staff already
Yeah,
following.
every other
the-
position would go through a hiring committee.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is
this is the only one that,
Yeah, so it is unique to this.
Then it would be subject to hiring
Must.
committee is described in 302.3.
That's what I would think. Hey, Lance, I think we should take out the word top, because you don't know that they're the top candidate until you interview them. So I think we should just put, in the event that the candidate.
Right.
Really.
Because
yeah, a
I think
candidate.
that,
That-
yes.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
In the event that a candidate is a relative of the supervisor, the hiring process must include the process outlined in 303.3, actually, which
So
is
they have a committee, so they have a committee.
303, I'm gonna do both of them, because one of them is the advertising for 2 weeks,
Yeah, gotcha.
and the other one is the interview committee.
Okay.
Can you scroll up so we can actually see what 303 or where's the
302.2 and 3. So,
That's the hiring committee.
yeah, 302 is the district
Oh,
website or other available media.
Check your numbers now.
What's going on?
Yeah, you got 303.
303 instead of 302 on your,
303.2.
Oh,
on the double.
That's what I was looking for.
oh, yeah.
You say.
She's
We've
lost
had
them before.
issues with that.
All right, we've done that before.
That's the difference between that first place typing test and the second place typing.
So help me with this. So the one question I had on this is in 302.3, right in the first sentence, it says the hiring committee will consist of the immediate supervisor.
Yeah, I saw that too.
One person in equal position. Equal position of the supervisor or equal position of the
The
candidate?
position is being hired,
Okay, why don't we put that in there?
yeah.
Now tell me, what is that person?
So
I know, but I,
the person in equal position of who's being hired.
So if you were
One
hiring for an
person
assistant
equal-
coach, that person would be
So
an
we don't
assistant
need
coach.
2 administrators on it, we need just the one administrator and then another head coach or another assistant
Yeah.
coach in this circumstance.
And it doesn't have to be the same sport or anything, just some other assistant. It's safe. And this just had our old website and listed a whole bunch of things. We just wanted to kind of leave that a little more open and just say the district website and other available media.
Does that satisfy the law?
Yeah. We do have to put it on our website, and actually, we do have to post everything on, would you remember what that's
Frontline?
called, Darren?
Is it frontline?
The state,
Oh.
the public notice, that is the requirement from the state. So maybe we should put that.
Other
Or do you want
required
it to put
media.
other required media instead of available?
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a good word.
It's a good word, coming from a teacher,
Yeah,
required.
Much better.
she could be an English teacher, not just a math teacher.
So I have a question for the association. Is that going to be a problem if they want a member of the association to be there to hire assistant coaches and things like
But
that?
it says, Jeff, they don't, classified, you don't have CCA.
Yeah, classified.
Right, I understand that, but we're not talking classified, we're talking assistant coaches.
But by definition, they are classified.
Oh, okay.
Certified, classified.
So even though they're a certified teacher, they're the coaching and assistant coaching are classified positions.
So then in reality, this hiring committee is going to be, so I'm gonna be the devil's advocate right here, okay?
You've never done that before.
I know.
You're just the devil.
They're gonna hire an assistant basketball coach. Okay, so the hiring committee is gonna be his dad, who's the supervisor, one person who's an assistant coach in some other sport, a neutral person, and that's it.
It's that way with when we hire paraprofessionals.
I'm just
We
saying,
can't have,
that's what
we
we've
can't
got.
have his dad
No.
on the hiring committee.
Well, how
What's
You
what it
can't have that
says?
relative. I know, that's what I'm saying, Jeff, you're right.
But how could you not? Like, let's take an example of sports.
Right.
And you're not, if you are the head coach and you have a vision for a program, and I understand we're talking this, how do you turn that over to somebody else who's doesn't
To
have
hire
any
your
idea
people.
about your personality or your philosophy, and you're not gonna hire Joe Blow that's the hothead down the street that's not what
Screams at
your
kids.
program's about.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can't let them be part of the committee.
Again, I don't doubt that.
So
I just
what if all we did though is we said,
just pointed it out.
if we added to this and said, you're gonna follow that process with the inclusion of the principal.
There you go. Then you have another neutral.
Now you have one other
Yes.
person.
And usually if it's a co-curricular coaching job, the athletic director is there for the building. I mean, I'm saying that.
You
at the
could
high
say
school.
one or the other, the
One or the
principal
other,
or the athletic
director.
director.
Yeah.
It still makes me nervous, but I see both points.
Mhm.
I lean more towards Jeff's point. From our
But then I
perspective,
think the other
because
part
of
of it
how
is
we get
training.
beat up.
I think it, you know.
That's just a
I
different
get
perspective.
it, but I also,
Yeah,
it
no.
set some people up potentially for a nightmare situation. And
Right.
it, you know, nobody's ever happy, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy.
It says, follow the process outlined in 302 with the addition of the principal or athletic director as a member of the interview committee. I like that a lot. That helps.
Yeah.
And then if that whole committee decides that that's
That's what
the
it
best
is
thing to
then.
do, then, you know, we followed a really good process, I think, to,
And sometimes it might be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we can say we have a process.
Well, I think, I mean, if we look at the baseball program right now, where that exists, we've got that assistant coach that's fully I mean, they're head coaching another successful program in the community. So,
Well, I think you've got a couple of situations. So do you go back to them and?
oh, anyone existing is
You don't
existing. I don't think you
change.
can go back.
All right.
okay, is there a motion to approve this as it stands now as a first reading?
I move that we approve this as it stands now as a first reading.
I didn't manipulate that at all, Deb. There's a motion, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? My pinch is on. With none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Before we move on from coaches, I was thinking that, you know, it was pretty neat that Mr. Howe had a win and a near miss. And it would be really nice if you and Mike had told him, don't you, the board, I mean,
But
it
if
was
the board
pretty-
recognized that.
Yes, we do recognize
Absolutely.
that. And you know, it's hard to take a program that's had a little rough time, you know, not winning. And so we recognize what a big thing that really is. I'll tell you, Mr. Howard, the best thing he does is he teaches men how to be good men. He really does. I really think a lot of him, so I'm really happy
That's what it's
for
all
him.
about.
I'm really happy for him. So tell him we thought it was terrific.
I would be happy.
Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. Any concerns with any items in the consent agenda?
I have some questions about the travel requests.
Yeah.
Yeah, we thought you'd probably say something about that.
It's like, I mean, I get that these are all already happened.
Yeah, all we can do really at this point is say that we're sorry that they didn't get on the August board meeting.
I got that.
It just really was not at the top of our, and normally they just come from the high school. And there was some conversation last year about this requirement no longer being needed. I know the high school had received some word somehow under the impression that requirement no longer existed, but that's not true.
No.
And so they were kind of, they were
Statewide
it really just
Statewide
wasn't
law?
on their radar.
But here was my question. Are there no more trips over 150 miles from now till October 9th?
So the way it was described to me, and we can do whatever you want, but the way we have been doing it is if it's a region, UHSAA activity.
Region does not, region or state competition does
Doesn't
not.
require that?
Yeah, does not require that. That's where they got around that when they wanted us to put in the same region as Box Elder. You know, that one proposal. It was- Yeah.
And they just, the way they look at it is, the board should know that you're going to play region teams. The board should know that you're gonna go to state. So there's really no need to get that approved. It's the preseason extra stuff that's
Yeah,
outside of that.
anything
that the
outside
board
of
should
region
know.
or state.
So we don't expect any of our teams or organizations to be going outside of region play? for the
Not-
Next 30 days?
No, not
Okay,
anymore.
that was my question. It's like, we had all these things happen before this meeting, and by the way, we're not gonna have anything, I just don't wanna be in the same position in a month from now.
Yeah, we won't be, we've got that all cleared out.
We appreciate you following up with this, showing that you actually did go talk to them. Appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
The list of new hires is pretty long as well. Got first of year pros and all that
This,
stuff.
yeah, this is the big one every year. So.
Yeah, is there anything that we need to remove from the consent agenda and move to closed session to discuss with the new hires? Okay. All right. Okay, question answer. Jeff, anything else that you saw on there? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Oh, we don't need a roll call on this, do we? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Unanimous. I think I do have to say that. Okay, anything else? Next board meeting, October 9th.
I'm not sure on that date. Today's the 9th, it can't be the
It
9th.
can't be the 9th. I was just
It's like
going, I
11.
was trusting you, Jeff.
Don't ever trust me. It's the 14th.
October 14th. Next board meeting, October 14th, unless our illustrious elementary supervisor decides we have to have a special meeting.
She'll never do.
Nothing else we can do for you, right?
Are you sure? Okay.
Trust me, we'll be visiting this in July next year, so.
June.
June, yes.
Well, I was in Reno. I had to go to my room.
I'm sorry.
Trying to get connected.
Trust
No,
me,
it worked
I
fine.
tried.
It worked fine.
I tried.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
I need to be adjourned.
Then moved, we are adjourned.
I pointed at her.
Isn't that something that Hunter could do?
Yeah, Hunter, I think we're going to let you do that.
Okay.
You can adjourn our meeting.
You can adjourn our meeting. So, except for what
Just so you
what you
know,
need to do is right in the middle of one of Jeff and Kristen's
We could spend a whole bunch of
big
money
long
on
things.
We're thinking about doing a big screen TV.
About 5
I'll
minutes.
hit that
something like
down.
that.
I'll hit that down.
Easier to see. We're not sure exactly. Yeah, we'll see what-
Yeah.
But it's very expensive to replace these for less than cost. We can get the TV. So I was. We talked about.
Considering what's going on.
Here, and then
It's less